you met Christine and married her in 1961.
Yeah.
You've had 4 children.
Yeah.
And you've owned your own business.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about how you met Christine, for starters.
I was invited to a parents' meeting one evening, and I saw Christine there, and I thought, oh, I fancy taking her out. I said, can I take you home? See, I've got a car by this time. Can I take you home? So she said, well, yeah, but she said, I've said that I go home with Graham, one of the helper's husbands. So he said he'd run me home. I said, well, I went up to Graham, found Graham, and I said, can I take her home? He said, yeah. So I took her home, and we started dating.
You've had 4 children?
Well, we tried ever so hard. We're obviously not doing things right. We wanted a baby from the start. We had to go to the doctors in the end, and we said, well, we've trying for a baby, and things haven't worked. So he said, oh, well, he said, you're not relaxing enough. You're all too tense, he said. But he said, keep trying. And he said, if we don't have any luck, I'll send you to see Tom Roberts. He'll sort things out for you. And of course, our dirty minds thought Tom Roberts would be rather good. Anyway, 2 years after we got married in 1963, Gail came along, and it was absolutely brilliant. Then we decided that we'd like to, we saw a house that was advertised being built, and this house was selling at £6,950, quite a jump. And I'm not sure, I think Mark was born there. But by this time, we decided that we would like to move to a bigger house. Christine saw an advertisement. It was an auction for this big house on Willowdale Road. It was in very poor repair. It was detached with 2/3 of an acre. And anyway, I bought this house for £12,500, and it made a headline in the paper.
Because it was so cheap?
No, because it was probably quite expensive at
Oh.
the time. Yeah, but of course, in the relative world, it was so cheap. I mean, when you look back, it was so cheap. Anyway, Emma was due, and Emma was born there. But it was a lovely, lovely garden for children, and there was trees that you could make swings off and ropes off them. And at one time, we were there 30 years, and one time I made a little mini golf course, a little putting thing. And we were so happy there, and Dave completed our family. So that was the family complete.
So tell us, go back to a businessman, then you just talk about that.
I came out of the forces, and what happened was, about 3 weeks before I was due to be demobbed, I got this letter, and it said that your Auntie Mary had died. That was my father's sister, and she has left you and Richard her estate. And we were left £4,940 each.
Nearly.
And that was an immense amount of money in 1955, January 55. If you look it up, and I don't know, probably in today's money, say something like 100,000, something like that, probably.
Wow.
Amazing. So I said to Richard worked in the steelworks downtown. I was out of a job, just being demobbed. Do you fancy going in business? Yes, I do. We found an advertisement for a shop on Woodsea. It's a large shop down an arcade. It's got very big windows. It's probably got 13 big windows, 3 at the front and quite a lot down this arcade, and another small shop on the other side, back of another shop. And that we got that in the deal as well. It was empty. It was called K's.
Wow.
And it had been a draper's, so we decided that we'd be drapers. We went over on the train to Manchester, and we went into a warehouse. We opened an account at 2 warehouses, and we came back on the train with some of the stock that we bought. Some of it was going to be delivered, and we started trading in some of the things that they'd traded in before the shop had closed down, just a few weeks before. The first day, we took 14 shillings and 14 shillings and a penny halfpenny. The first week, we took in that shop £19. And then Richard hit upon the idea that credit trading was coming in. Everybody wanted things in those days. It was a bit of a boom. People wanted things on the Never Never. So we would go out in the evening. We started off doing it mainly one night a week, and we would knock on people's doors, and we had perhaps a bedding bale under our arm, or a small carpet, or a towel pack, or something like that. And we said, if you open an account with us, you get this for, I don't know, just depends how the price was, but
Yeah.
10 bob a week, 5 bob a week, whatever. And gradually, it was awful doing it. It was dreadful. I blushed violently every time. And I prayed that people wouldn't open the door. It was dreadful to start with. But gradually I got better. And I didn't redden up every time people came to the door. And gradually I started off getting 4 or 5 customers to call on in the evening. And gradually people recommended people. We decided we wanted another shop, and it was down on Abbeydale Road, not very far away, down the hill, about a mile down the hill. And the shop had been a Dewhurst Butcher's, and we were taking the fixtures out of the shop, emptying the butcher's block and everything.
Yeah.
We bought it. We got a letter from the Lloyds Bank, and they wanted it. And so they said, we would like to buy it. We'd only just bought it 3 or 4 weeks before. They'd missed it somehow. And so Richard and I thought, well, yeah, they can have it, but we're going to make some money on this. If they want it, we've gone to quite a bit of trouble if they want it. So anyway, they wanted it, and they paid what we asked. And Richard and I had a bonus of £1,000 each. And we haven't been going very long. And that was lovely start.
Yeah.
And it also meant that I got a bit of money because I'd ploughed everything into the business, apart from 200 quid, which I'd kept for stuff, things like my 21st birthday party and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was the start. And then gradually we bought another shop. It was called we call that one Kay's Wool Shop. We took the shop, we took the entire stock. It was bursting. This old lady wanted to get rid of it. It was bursting with cardigans and jumpers and everywhere in the upstairs stock room. And Richard and I looked in amazement, and we thought, this is just wonderful business to buy. And we bought it, and we bought the stock, and the stock sold like time, because we had a bit of a sale, and the stock was all wool. Some of it was stock from the war, but it was beautifully made. And so that was Kay's Wool Shop. A bit later, we opened Kay's Baby Shop. That was just across from the big shop. At the back, in the little shop at the back, we had Kay's Lino Shop. We sold floor covering. And then on Abbeydale Road, we decided that there was another shop coming empty. So that was next door, but was just down from the bank that had gone in our first premises, and that was called Kay's of Abbeydale. So at one time, in this 30 years that we traded together, we'd got these 5 shops running. worked a 6-day week, and we actually got fined. We got fined 50 pence for opening. Richard and I got fined 50 pence each for opening on a Thursday afternoon because we were supposed to close. It was supposed to be early days. So we had the inspector sitting outside the shop, and we got fined 50 pence each. It was just derisory, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we traded very happily. Another amazing bit of luck was one day a huge pantechnicon drew up outside the shop, and the guy came in and he said, I'm from Waldo's of Chesterfield. They made 3-piece suites. He said, I've got 40 easy chairs and 3 settees. He said, I want £5 for the easy chairs, and I want £10 for the settees. He said, but you've got to have the lot. But we weren't big enough to take 40, but we said, right, we'll have them. Well, we put them in this arcade during the day, and at night we stacked them all in the shop, and we put them in the back of the travellers' vans. We put them in the toilet. We took some home. And they were all over, but they sold like time, and we sold them at. We made a big profit on each one, and people clamoured for an extra easy chair in the house. Some of them were perhaps returns or not quite up to standard, but it was a brilliant buy, and it made a lot of money. Another thing that was really good for us was it was the start of wall-to-wall carpet, and Cyril Lord had just started making this cheap carpet that, instead of having polished edges round the carpet in the 50s and 60s, people wanted it to go right to the edges.
Fully fitted, yeah.
And we got it on that era, and we sold a terrific lot of this.
I understand you stopped a house from burning down whilst you were on your collection round.
Yeah, I did. I was going around to call at a house, and I saw it was a very hot day, and it was a terrace, mining terrace in Dinnington. And I saw, to my horror, that smoke was coming out of the kitchen window. So it wasn't where I was calling. It was about 2 houses away. But to stop the car, I saw it come out of the window. And I went in, and the smoke was down to, there was just an area quite low where there was no smoke, and the rest of the kitchen was full of black smoke. So I banged on the door, and nobody was around. And then I crouched and went to the bottom of the stairs, and I shouted, "Is anybody at home?" And there was nobody in. And the kitchen was on fire. The curtains were on fire. The woodwork of the window frame was on fire. And there was a chip pan that was on fire on the top of the stove. So I got a cloth, and I took the chip pan off with the cloth, and doused the flames from that. And then I got water and found a receptacle and filled it full of water and doused the woodwork, and it was starting quite high up, and the curtains are all useless. So, but I doused all this fire, and there was nobody in. Nobody saw me. Nobody was in that house. Nobody was in the next house that faced it. Where they'd gone, I don't know. And so I did my call. I came back, there was still nobody. And so I got in my car, and to this day, I don't know who they were. I never went back. I never found out who it was.
Scouting, it's been the love of your life, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You've been in the movement for 60 years.
Been a leader for 52 of those years.
52.
And the other 8 years, some of the time I was like the scout up cleaner or something like that. And then I got headhunted again, and I took on the troop that I did 30 years at. And they were absolutely incredible because we had a right beat-up troop with hardly any equipment, and got some really enthusiastic kids. We built up a big canoeing fleet, and we had an enormous amount of fun. We went every year in those 30 years I was there. We had perhaps 4 or 5 camps in this country. The rest were always on either the Channel Islands, the Isle of Sark, Jersey and Guernsey, of course, or abroad in Europe. And I think altogether I've done 35 scout camps of 10 to 14 days in Europe, in Luxembourg, in Belgium, France, Germany.
And how many kids per trip would you take?
Had to be quite a few. They could do it quite cheap if you got numbers. And what we did was, to afford this, because it wasn't a very wealthy area where the scout troop was, as soon as we finished one camp, we always did a slideshow of the activities, had a parents' evening, showed them what fun we were having. And then at the end, I said, we've decided that we'd like to go to, say, Belgium next year. Price, Switzerland we also went to. We're going to Switzerland next year on a camp. The price will be £15 for a 10-day trip to Switzerland. We're going by rail. If I give you a card now, over 30 weeks, if you pay 10 shillings a week on this card, it would pay for the trip. And this is what we did every September until we went to camp. We paid into what was called Camp Bank, and it paid for it that way. We ran all sorts of activities to keep the price of the camp down so that we could supplement the camp. And we took things with us like £6 cans of beans and fruit and stuff like that in these big catering packs so that we could keep the price down.
And you won I don't know, did you win it? Do you win the Silver Acorn Award?
Yeah.
What's that being given for?
That was a very interesting night because I'd finished work and I got to go to this presentation. The Chief Scout was coming and they wanted all the leaders to go and your wives were invited. And it was a sit-down meal and I got there late. I'd been collecting. It was a Friday. And I quickly grabbed a pint at this place and I sat down and I took my shoes off. And I think I was probably on my second pint and got my shoes off. And all of a sudden they called my name out and presented me with this medal. And I had to put my shoes back on quickly and, to put my neck straight and do my collar up and go up and present this and get presented with this medal. That was good fun.
And what was the medal for? Was it long service or?
I got a medal first of all for long service and good service. The Silver Acorn was not given out. That was given out for sort of outstanding service, and there were not many of those were given out. And I was very proud to get that one. The other outstanding thing that happened to me was in 1979, I was asked if I'd go to an interview board in the centre of Sheffield because they wanted leaders for the 1978 I was interviewed. 1979 we were going to a jamboree which was going to be held in Iran. And so I went to this interview, and I got the job as the leader of this contingent that were going from South and Central Yorkshire. And there was going to be 32 kids and 4 leaders, and we were going to Iran. But there was the coup. The Shah was deposed, and the jamboree in Iran was called off. The Scout Association quickly got together with scouts from the world that were all disappointed not going to Iran, and they gave us a choice of places we could go to. And we were offered Canada, several places in the States, Switzerland, and 1 or 2 more places in Europe. And the kids had never been to, these 32 boys had never been to the States, and I hadn't either. Anyway, so we were signed up for a 10-day, we were going to have a week's home hospitality in Oklahoma City with American Scout families. And then we were going to go on this 10-day hiking trip in the mountains of New Mexico. And the highlight of it would be to climb Mount Baldy, which was 12,441 feet. Quite high, and we all fancied this job. And we were going on our own. We were going to split up 8 boys and 1 leader off on our own in that group for 10 days.
Wow.
And we did. And it was a most amazing thing. And we got to know these kids so well. And the boys were the cream of scouts. They're aged from 14 to 19. And we hiked hard. We always finished at 12 o'clock. We got up early every morning. We hiked very hard from 6 o'clock in the morning till about 12 or 1 o'clock. And it would always rain hard, and for a couple of hours in the afternoon. And so we did that. One time we were given a mule for 3 days. We hated this mule because it was so slow and obstinate, but it carried our kit, carried our rucksacks. We called on a place where they did gold panning for gold, and we did that. And then we got to another place where you picked up your food. Various places on the route you could pick up your food, and we just had I had a tent on my own, which the other kids carried half a little tent each in their rucksack. I had to carry a whole one. It was an enormous, wonderful holiday, and the people spoilt us rotten in Oklahoma City, introduced us to all sorts of food and things that we'd never come across. They took us horse riding. They took some of the kids went. Some of the parents that they were with were wealthy. Took them in helicopters. So we went round shops with sold cowboy stuff, and went round a museum, American Wild West Museum. We had an absolute ball. And in the evenings, they threw parties for us. We went on a small 2-day camp with them. We went swimming in the evenings. We did everything. We had a great time. They fed and watered us, and they were crying when we left. There were so many people crying. It was wonderful. An amazing, amazing trip. And anyway, we went on this wonderfully organised hike and climbed this mountain. And we had such an adventure. We were walking on the first day and hiking along, and this bloody great snake came slithering across in front of the lead kid, and I shouted at him. I said, "Stop!" And I don't know what it was, and I don't even know it was poisonous, but I just didn't want him treading on it. And then the same kid, he was called Neville Pike, he was the patrol leader, He was about 15, but he was a bright kid, and he read far better than I did. And when we were climbing this mountain, his nose, as we were climbing up, his nose started to bleed, and it bled all over his shirt and everywhere. And I didn't know what the hell to do. But anyway, we got to pat against his nose, and we made it to the top. But I was glad to get him off because it was a pressure thing.
Yeah.
And when he got below a certain height, it stopped. But that was a bit frightening.
Mm.
But it was quite a wonderful experience, that was. And I've probably told you about the phone call I got a few months ago, did I?
No, tell me now.
Christine answered the phone in the hall about a couple of months ago. She came and she said, it's Chris Mack on the phone. Do you remember him? He's asked if you remember him. Well, Chris Mack was the youngest member of these 8 boys that I went with. He is now, if you bear in mind that this was 1979, 42 years ago since I'd spoken to him. He'd just retired in business from Goldman Sachs, the biggest bankers in the country. He was 57 years old or something, and he'd retired, and he wanted to contact me, and he wanted to contact the other 7 boys in this group, and he did. Within 3 weeks, he contacted through Facebook every one of these people. One was in America, one was a professor at Leicestershire Bank, one was a GP in Sherburn in Elmet, and they were from business and they'd all been very successful.
Oh.
And it was just amazing to be in touch with all of them. And I think what they've arranged is that they're going to go on a hike when they meet together later on in the year after COVID's over. And then they're going to go drinking in a pub. And then one of the things that I thought was so amazing, because one of them said, just found out that Roger is 86. And I saw this email that had been sent, and I don't think I'll be going on the high with them, do you?
No,
I think I'll just be going to the pub. Anyway, we're going to stop, aren't we?
Just one more story
Right.
To finish that off, because I think it's quite amazing that the guy who was a scout who stopped you in a shop and said, "Oh, just wait there." Just tell me a bit more about that.
I'm quite new at this second scout troop, and I hadn't got I'd got parents to help me, but I hadn't got a proper scouter. But I was using a boy of about 17 or 18, and I think one of the parents didn't turn up that night, and I got the kids all round. I got quite a large troop by this time, probably 30. Generally had about 24, but I got about 30. They were all round the room, and they were about to have flag break. And they were bouncing this black rubber bouncy ball around. Bang, over it went, and somebody else would bang it over to somebody else. And it was going like this, and it drove me cracking. I wanted to get on with the flag break, and I said, for God's sake, put that bloody ball away. And I was really cross with them. And this kid, Mark Abbey, aged about 12, put it in his mouth and swallowed the bloody thing. Well, you've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything since. This gunge poured out of his mouth in a solid stream. You could cut it. And it came out of his mouth as he was trying to breathe. And his stomach must have been sending this thing up. Anyway, what shall I do? How can I do this? So I said to the kid, come with me. And I picked him up because he was panicking like mad. And I said to this oldest kid, I said, go to the nearest house that you see that's got a telephone line. Because, not everybody had a telephone line in 1979. Bang like hell on the door and dial 999, get them to dial 999, and we want them as quick as they possibly can. Took this kid into the back room, laid him on a table, and tried to get this ball out of his mouth. This gun was coming out, going all over the floor. I couldn't get it out. I tried and tried, and I was just placating the kid. And eventually, the ambulance came, and they tried to get it out, and they couldn't. And so they took him to hospital, and he was in 3 days, and they passed the ball on the third day. They pushed it down his throat. They couldn't get it out. Pushed it down, and it took him 3 days to pass this black rubber bouncy ball. But the person that said, I met this man in the Tesco supermarket, and he came up to me and said, hello, Rog. I didn't know who he was because time had passed, and of course a kid, when he grows up, you don't know who he is. And he said, well, you just wait there a minute, Rog. He said, I want to introduce you to my wife. And she came over, and he said, this is Rog, who was my scout leader when I was a boy, and he saved my life.